two of our live discussion. There was a bunch of good questions still coming in, and I didn't even get to any of the questions that were submitted really. So maybe I'll just start with one of those submitted questions. And, ooh, what good, oh my god, this is like, so if I don't get to all this, I'll screenshot this and then I'll try to just figure it out. But let's see what we have. So Diana Wellbeing asks, what are strategies to begin a movement towards sustainable living, community farming? I would say number one is social permaculture, which means I've seen a lot of communities get the land, get the vegetables, but fall apart because of the social dynamics, and I think that's so important. So we need people who train in social communication and ritual as far as how do we bring people together when they feel divided? How do we get people to come to agreements, right? So, Eric Stacking Functions and I talk a bunch about that. He talks about it in the form of sociocracy, and the book is We the People. And then there's all kinds of, nonviolent communication is a point of that. Any therapeutic models are going to be very helpful. With sustainable living, what I think is that, first of all, scale down. Um, it's very important to scale down as far as our needs and wants. I also like the idea of bulk buying clubs, so you can buy your grain as a community, right? It's much cheaper that way. Having potlucks and movie nights and community gatherings of any sort is really good, especially if you theme it based on sustainability ideas. I teach foraging and herbalism workshops more so for the fact of gathering people who care about those kind of things to get them threaded together so that they can continue the discussions. Farming communities, I think number one is really important, is that right now there's like Republicans who vote for Donald Trump, etc., who have farms, who their kids don't care about that farm life anymore, but there are a bunch of hippies, progressives, who do, and the common goals are localizing, nationalizing, in the sense of, no, not building border walls and isolating people out and becoming a totalitarian dictatorship, but how can we get our resources and our needs met as a community? We all want that. Who's the butcher, the baker, the candlestick maker? How can we identify trade skills and roles in our community? So check out time banking as one option. And there's what I've been doing. Thank you to everybody who's helped donate to the Forage Mobile and helping me to tour around. And what I'm trying to do is find the hubs, find the communities, find the people who want homesteads, find other people who want a garden, get them together, get them connected, get them on the land, get people digging, get the shovels, where's the tools, what do you have, what do you have? Just try to thread that together and really follow the archetype of the mycelium, which is always just integrating, integrating, integrating. So I would just say do whatever your skill is good at, share your skill. Think about this way. Imagine if you could repair clothes. And imagine if you start teaching sewing at your local library or doing workshops and getting some money for that and then reinvesting that into supplies or whatever, and then continuing to help build this like small cottage industry of grandmas who want to stitch clothing. And instead of throwaway culture, instead of just getting rid of stuff, then we can have repair or knitting communities. And like every one of those things, those trade skills, those craft skills are going to be super important in laying the foundation, including the social skills, number one, the foundation for when the land and the places open themselves up, will be more prepared to step in and not get drowned by the immense amount of things that need to be done or learned, or the amount of community. So, this year I'm finishing up my tour in California. Thanks to every single person I've met. It's been so amazing. I just really have been blown away by all the amazing people across the country and deepened lots of connections with some good brothers and sisters. And I'll be now leaving California in a couple weeks and headed back east. And so I'll be, going to Nevada, Arizona, New Mexico, Oklahoma, Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, Pennsylvania, and then New Jersey. And I'll be in Cherry Valley Co-op again. Hopefully I'm going to do an in-person mentorship this year, so if you're interested in foraging and herbalism and would like to do a mentorship where we camp out in New Jersey, let me know. I might also do an online mentorship, but I'm feeling like that's so impersonal and really doesn't feel deep. So I don't know how to make that deep. I mean, I know most people sign up for these like expensive mentorships online and then don't follow through with it. And so if you have any suggestions or you would want to, do that. Where in New Jersey? The Coyote Mama in central New Jersey, outside of Princeton, is Cherry Valley Cooperative, one word, on Instagram. And they're amazing, and we do a lot of farming and a lot of gardening and a lot of community events. So, and there we're going to have all kinds of sort of models, right? So I know a whole bunch of people who want to help with the herb farm. I'm going to be growing an herb farm with my friends Emily and Lauren. We're kind of the working group of growing plants and then harvesting them and processing them into medicines and all those things. So that'll also be incorporated in the in-person mentorship. Luna, probably around Las Vegas. I really like Red Rock Canyon. I think that's what it's called. And so I'll probably go there and teach a class, maybe in a couple weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks. And we'll see. So thank you, thy Coyote Mama. Blessings. I mean, they're not my words. I'm just the puppet. I'm just a fucking puppet. So, if anybody, I missed your classes, if I missed your questions on the last video, and all y'all can go back and check out that first video, but also if I missed your questions, just ask them again. I think Elena was asking about yoga, something or other. Jets Apothecary says, always live your plant talks, or live. Which I think they meant love. And so also I like the idea of jokingly that says, I always live your plant talks. So that means that you're taking whatever's happening and living it. And I really hope that that is what we can all do. Ashley says, what do you think happens to our souls after death? Well, as I was saying before, the 3 alchemical bodies, right? So the soul is your samskaras, your imprint, your individuated sense of self. And the only way we get an individuated sense of self is from attachment. And so whatever you are attached to still, and this means having genitals, having sex, playing guitar, loving muffins, whatever it is, whatever your desires and attachments still are, is what reincarnates you into the next incarnation. And so what I've experienced through working with shamanic plants is that you transcend out of the tunnel above you, and that's your soul. And as you are into that spiritual world, to the degree that you can expand yourself beyond needing anything, right? Needing a sense of a body, right? Would leave you in that realm. And then I believe it's a continuation, right? And it's a multidimensional universe where the laws and the rules that apply to being in the physical central circle are very much about attachment and addiction to viscerality. And that's a very hard thing to shed. And so we come back and we repeat. And so as you transcend whatever you still want to be, still have attachment to, it embodies you, literally. Like that becomes your genetic cellular structure. And then you end up isolating and individuating out different wombs, right? Different portals, right? And eventually your attachment comes so refined that you're in a womb. And then you have all those samskaras, those karmas to work out. So that's what I believe and have experienced to the degree that I can. I trust plant medicines that they do show many valid things. And so Emna says, is that a shamanic view? In part, yeah, it's partially a shamanic view, partially a yogic view, partially a direct experience through things like Salvia divinorum, ayahuasca, mushrooms. I believe that they're sort of after death teachers, right? They take you to the spiritual world. Thank you, Sarah Millie, for joining. Cobra Rainbow says, I always plant my live talks. So that's great, because it sounds like you're planting your phone in your garden after you do a live Instagram. So that might grow something. Elena says, what yoga did I practice, and were you initiated? So most of my teachers were really anti-initiation in the sense of formal initiation, and I am too, sort of, in the sense of it's not about your initiation by some guru and how you change your outfit. It's about the initiative that you take in order to do the sadhana. And so if you're doing the sadhana, then there's nothing to brag about and there's nobody to show, right? The showing is, they call this antar sannyas, which means inner sannyas. So you can take renunciation without trying to tell the world that you're not attached and addicted to everything. And until you're not attached and addicted to everything, you shouldn't take renunciation. And in our modern culture, what happens is very horny and attached people still take renunciation because they're going to pretend that they're not horny, and then they do all kinds of corrupt shit, and it makes the whole process disgusting and shameful. And then doubt, right, in the monk life, and you see this in the Catholic Church, with child pedophilia, which is horrible. And you see this in, the yogic tradition or the shamanic tradition, where people are saying they're celibate and they're not. And I think this is extremely damaging. I think you should just be honest with yourself and other people. And then, so I've never taken formal initiation, but I've spent time with monks. And so when I was young and I got into all this stuff, my best friend died when I was about 17 or 18. It was extremely traumatic. I no longer cared about school, and I started going to ashrams, and I just happened to find certain ashrams by my parents' house, and one of them was extremely amazing, Swami Tadatmananda in New Jersey, who is a student of Swami Dayananda, who I later had seen in India, went to visit him. And so the practice that I started out doing was Princeton Center for Yoga and Health, Deborah allowed me to do work trade. I'd work at the desk and then take classes. So I took Deborah's class, and then I met this little tiny Indian man. His name's Rama, and he was like Yoda to me. And I started taking his classes twice a week, so that's asana. And he was much deeper than just asana. So he also taught pranayam and did like a half-hour yoga nidra, which was some of the most profound experiences. So I went from like, I don't know, 22 to 27 or whatever, practicing yoga, asana, twice a day, getting into the philosophy, going deeper, reading many books, and also studying Vedanta from Swami Tadatmananda. And then I found another ashram, Swami Amarnathananda, which is also by my parents' house, which I've been going since I was, 17, 18, 19. And he teaches some things about the Bhagavad Gita. And then Rama at some point told me that he was going to do a Ganesh Puja. I actually asked him, so all this asana, what will it do at the time of your death? And he looked at me and he said, nothing. And so then I said, well, what does change that trajectory, those samskaras? And he said, puja, right? And so he started teaching me pujas, and then I got really into puja, which is the rituals, mudras, mantras, chanting sanskrit, all those things. And so I don't want to take initiation because I feel like that has been a foundation for me to go back to wearing a flannel shirt and being a normal person. And I feel like that's my path, is to teach about plants. It's not about me. It's not about guru trips. It's not about like what Mahayogi you think you are. It's about ecology, nature, and God through nature. God is in nature, right? God and nature are one. That's, the other level of the Shiva and Shakti is actually, that is a cosmic manifestation. What it is the light and the earth that's the yin and yang. There's only one God, there's only one goddess, and the God and the goddess are one. Somebody also asked me about my ring, which someone gave this to me, my friend Steven, and I wore it for a while, and then I took it off, and then I just found it again and put it back on. And it's copper, so it's good for the blood, and this means I'm married to the Kundalini serpent. But I think it's your right hand, right? So it's okay. I don't know. I've never worn a ring in my life, so this is the only ring I've ever worn. And what it is just really bringing me into a sense of dedication with the serpent, the rebirth, the transformation, and other such things. So now what's going to happen is my battery's going to die. What if you believe in everything but nothing at the same time? Then you are enlightened. So within all phenomenon, there are 4 truths about the phenomenon. So here's the phenomenon, here's the 4 truths. 1, it definitely is that. 2, it definitely isn't that. 3, it both is and isn't that. And 4, it neither is or isn't. And so somewhere in there is direct perception and observation and witness. And that's our goal. So whenever you commit a belief, you also commit to not believing the opposite. And this is a trap. But it's also a game. And we have to do something. And so I don't believe in belief. I think believing is sort of, we should strive for more than just believing. We should strive for truth. We should strive for facts. We should strive for evidence. We should strive for continuing to challenge our beliefs, because beliefs are to be deconstructed, not built walls around. Because we all have faulty beliefs. We all have confusion in the mind, unless you are enlightened, like people who believe in everything but nothing at the same time. So I like the idea of provisional assessment. So we're always growing and we're always at a provisional state. And so whatever you think is true is subject to change with more facts and more knowledge. And so this is really the idea of summed up in one man named Rudy Giuliani. And if you haven't been paying attention, it's there's no collusion, there's no collusion, there's no collusion. Well, collusion isn't a crime. Collusion isn't a crime. Well, I didn't say they didn't collude. And even if they did, it's not a crime. And then he's innocent, and collusion happened, but he's innocent. And so this is backtracking. This is walking back, because new facts, new evidence, new facts, new evidence, new facts. And if we cannot allow our minds to be supple and flexible about receiving new information and allowing that to contradict, the great thing, so I wrote about the Native American man at the protest. You like this one, right? Boing! The Native American man drumming at the protest with the Me Too people. My initial assessment, right, had lots of further holes in it, lots of things to explore. And there's so much toxicity in being like, oh my God, but you said that and then you changed your mind. It's like, that's what you're supposed to do. And if you don't start somewhere and you can't have a discussion, then how are you supposed to grow and learn? So if you state a position, please grow your position and transform. If you don't, then you're probably really fickle, too stuck, too fixated. And I'm a Taurus, So how do we become flexible and with our thoughts that we're always right? Like, nobody is always right. If you think you're always right, that's all. Sarah Millie says, what am I drinking? I'm drinking yerba mate with a little bit of black sage that I sprinkled in here, dried black sage that I harvested. And this is a bombilla, so it's a filtered straw, and then just some hot water and a little maple syrup. Cobra Rainbow says, plant consciousness assistants. I don't even call them medicines anymore. They're teachers. Individuals are part of the collective of teachers. Yes, if anyone that I've taken formal initiation to is each plant to me is a guru. Every plant is the shaman. And they're all ambassadors to the greater whole of nature and God. And if you humble yourself and listen to a weed and take the time to do dieta with that weed and connect with it and do more than just use it for fixing your problems, then it will also open up its consciousness or its awareness or insights to you. And that just happens in very simple ways. It doesn't say, hey, my name's Bob the Plant and I'm here to teach you. It's more subtle and it's more simple. But you'll see things. Like, I teach sometimes about the interaction with bees and flowers. And I try to blow people's minds with all these facts about how that interaction occurs. And 90% of how that teaching came to me was by following a plant, watching it happen, and being like, oh my God, I'm blown away by this. I bet you if I try to explain this to other people, it will blow them away. Yeah, the plants are the teachers. Follow plants, not gurus. Cobra Rainbow says, fellow shaman, I was born into it through Salgi, then headed to South America in the mid-90s. Well, great. Bless your path, do the work in a humble and good way. And remember, it's not about us. It's about the work. La trabajar. Right? Rivka says, have I seen yogis contort and speak in youngest during practice? Speak in tongues. I've never seen, I've seen people who would be considered insane speaking in tongues, and they're part yogis. So you're talking about spandana, right? So these the idea within Kundalini, when your Kundalini wakes up, right, you go through Kriyas or Spandana. I have found experiences where I'm going through Kriyas, but they're more formal, like this stuff, right? It's not like, but if you need that, I mean, Osho has kind of practices like that as well, of more like, going through these things. And so the problem with this is that if you believe that in order to achieve a state of enlightenment, you need to have these kind of phenomenon, then you'll kind of manifest them. And so sattva, rajas, and tamas are the three states, the three gunas, right? So sattvic meditation looks like this, right? Rajasic meditation maybe looks like that. Tamasic meditation looks like you fall asleep. And so our goal is sattvic meditation, because in meditation, you have nothing to, there's no need for the body. Well, that's like a transition from yoga asana to move the flow, to move the stagnation, right, into spandana, or like movements that are agitating, to stillness and meditation. And so that's kind of the practice, right? And with whatever degree that we need, I just want to make sure that, like, it's very important that I've been in meditations where everybody's silent except for one person, and they're part of the transcendental meditation movement, and they're like, and you're just like, dude, okay, you're meditating. But then I also learned when I went down to Colombia to drink ayahuasca, the one and only time I ever drank ayahuasca was in the traditional place. Taita Domingo, a very powerful shaman who doesn't call himself a shaman, the whole time he did an intro and then an outro, and in between, he didn't wave feathers at us and act like some big shot. He basically sat there like this and would do anything. If you were like, hey, I need help, he'd get up and help you. And he was flying. I mean, he drinks ayahuasca a lot. But I realized, and my lesson in that was like, just be a normal human. Carry the Shakti within you and just be normal. Like we don't need necessarily these spiritual bragging rights, or like, wear some red gown or whatever. And you could do that too. And there's also something about, I think that we're in a situation where when you take on that sort of archetypal situation, people will throw mud and also attachment and crazy at you. And so I don't think that that's going to be helpful, because it makes it about yourself, And so if you're going through kriyas and you're going through that process, shake it out and feel good. And then I would suggest to channel it from contortion and distortion to dance and flow, and then stillness, and then maybe that will be helpful. Cobra Rainbow says birth was our initiation. Yes, I like that. Oh, excuse me. Let's see what I have here for... Oh, bear root, otherwise known as Osha. Tincture from Dwayne, which is at Red Feather Farms. Can't wait to see him in a couple weeks, I guess. In Oklahoma, we'll be in Tulsa doing some classes at his place. And he's also teaching me how to hunt. And I'll probably do a hunt this time, so he's a good brother. He's a very wise man. Brittany Claudia says, beautiful words. Your words resonate. Well, thank you. I have no idea what I'm doing, but at least I'm doing it. It is until it isn't. What is until what isn't? Connection is choppy. Oh, fucking fuck. Sorry. Team Taurus. Yeah, Emna. I'm Italian, huh? New Jersey Italian. But I also, my grandmother, she had a man, her mother, I don't know what happened, man came in, man went goodbye, and he, I believe, had a last name that sounded more German. So when you live in New Jersey and you are Italian, your whole family tells you you're 100% Italian. And so I never even thought about it until my grandmother died and got that piece a little too late. So part of my family is from Bari, and part of my family is from Sicily. Sadhguru, Sadhguru. Well, Satguru, right? Of course, there's the guy, the guru named Sadhguru, and he says some interesting things. But also Sat and Upaguru. So the Sadguru is God itself, or your inner light, the self. And then the Upaguru is the one who's embodied physically and points you towards that self. So if the guru isn't pointing you back to your Satguru, they're not a good guru. If they're pointing you towards their pocketbook, saying give here, then watch out. Damn, I did that thing again. Well, I guess we're ditching all the questions that people asked before. I move like Shakira. Oh, jeez. I think Shakira is like a dancer, right? That's not Shakira. I don't know who Shakira is. The body is a pile. The body is a pile of waste. It is a temporary vessel, and from here to there, we are meant to make compost. I'm a compost compiler. Sorry. The Coyote Mama says, I love that the shaman don't need a label. Yeah, my quote, those who say don't know and those who know don't say. And there are exceptions, but that's a general rule. Cobra, we're all the universe trying to experience itself from a different point of view. Yeah, it reminds me of Bill Hicks. How about a positive drug story on the news? Today, a young man on LSD realizes that we are all one consciousness, and each one of us is the universe experiencing itself subjectively. Rivka says, I was taught that shaman is only such when recognized by the people. The shamans don't call themselves such. Yeah, and a healer is not a self-title. It's something that people call you when you heal them. And if you just be quiet and you help, then they'll decide. And it's all crazy. It's all labels, and it all sets up traps, especially in this day and age. So also a yogi is one who has attained yukti. And so that's the goal, right? That's the end result. But we're sadhakas. We practice yoga, asana, pranayama, meditation to attain yukti. And until you are one with God all the time, which is in samadhi and almost can't get yourself out, then that's a yogi. Sarah Millie says, my husband is Italian and his family from Sicily. Hey, we're probably long-lost ancestors. Also, what's really funny is my friend Alec from Cherry Valley Co-op, his family is from Bari, and both of our families were farmers. So literally the same village. We're in New Jersey farming, and both of our families come from the same village in Italy, where of course they were farming, because that's what everybody did. Rivka. St. Francis of Assisi referred to his body as a lame ass. Yeah, that's very modern terms if you think about it. It's like, I'm just a lame ass. But he meant like a lame donkey, I guess. Yeah, the body is not necessarily the self, but, mind makes a terrible servant but an excellent master. Ego makes a terrible servant but an excellent... Sorry, I'm saying it totally backwards. Mind makes a terrible master but an excellent servant. Ego makes a terrible master but an excellent servant. Body makes a terrible master but an excellent servant. Elena says, diving deep into self-realization through yoga and meditation for a long time and having a deep connection to the earth and plants, feeling like this love to earth interferes with moving the energy up. I don't think so. I know what you're saying. The energy doesn't have to move up. So one of my teachers says, Kundalini only sleeps in a corpse. So that's a metaphor, but it's not necessarily an upward motion. Also, because if you're going to live in the world, you don't need to do otherworldly things. So the practice, the deeper Kundalini, if you're going to live in samadhi, then stop having a job. If you're going to live in the world, have a service job. So we need to decide what our dharma is. Not everybody's meant to sit in a cave all for 20 hours a day. That's not necessarily the goal of your life. The goal of your life is unique for you. And so earth connection, if you want to say earth connection makes you less spiritual, then you're not really connecting. And it's yin and yang. Earth and God are one. Nature and God. That's the yin and the yang. So attachment to anything is interfering more than anything. Love for the earth and service of the earth, I believe, is our natural manifestation. Rivka says, Earth is grounding. You were incinerated, incarcerated, incarnated. This world is like incarceration. And the vampires are draining our souls. Yeah, Earth is grounding and groundedness. So, those three modes, right? Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas. Tamas is the earth energy, right? And it's seen as lethargy. So, Hare Krishna say, only eat, don't eat meat because it's lower vibration. Only eat all these other things because they're high vibration. But if you live in a world that's different from a monk life, then your life is going to be different. And so grounding and tamas. So I asked Vasant Lad for, if you're familiar, of vata type, for people with vata disorder, mental derangement, confusion, flightiness, right? Would tamasic foods help to ground them? And he said, yes, of course. But if you read in the basic oversimplified literature, they always say that, tamasic means you're going to be dumb and dull. But no, earth-based things are helpful for earth-based needs, right? So I think my battery's going to die. Let me see. Keep my head in the... What is that? Like old 311 song? Yeah, keep your feet on the ground and your crown in the sky. No problem. That's the alchemical crucible, Ha! Cobra Rainbow. What about detaching from attachment? Well, we have to be careful, because if we attach to detaching from attachment, then we're also creating more attachment. So the hankering, right? Non-grasping, non-pushing. And if we can attain that to the degree that we do, then we're attaching from detachment. But as soon as we think, I want to detach from attachment, then it can slip into being attached. And so I think it's really important to recognize and honor our attachments. And instead of fighting against them, creating neurosis, creating a bipolar mind, which points from here or points from there at these things like attachments, what we can do instead, I feel, my practice is to say, yes, these are my attachments. And then in knowing, they're no longer unconscious. They become more conscious. And then I think they have a greater chance of growing when you're conscious of these things than when you're trying to put on your white robe and act spiritual and not looking at those attachments. And I think so many times it's about checking out from our human self, not necessarily breathing and looking at our human self and helping that become transmutated into spirit self, right? We want to accent the good and hide from the bad, so to speak. But I feel like most of the alchemical work is to be done in the unconscious. Rivka says, I had a Zen teacher that once said it's really easy to be enlightened on the top of a mountain when nobody is looking. He called them rice bag monks, useless as a rice bag. Yeah, I mean, and that's great, and it's selfish, That's great. You could be enlightened on top of your mountain, but you're not serving suffering people. And the difficult work here is serving suffering people, going out of our way to serve and to help other people. And of course, Ram Dass's favorite famous quote, if you think you're enlightened, go spend a weekend with your family. I think that's a great one. Yes, whole systems. Greatest meditative practice is tending your garden. That's when no mind. So meditation does not have to look like something external. It doesn't have to look like Om Shanti, Om Shanti, right? It needs to look like, I forgot my mind in that gap. Whatever you were doing. Oh my God, I wasn't even thinking, I wasn't even analyzing, I was purely in the present moment. Whenever you're in that state, that's meditation. And you can get there through gardening, of course. And that's a kriya. Gardening is a kriya, right? It's a yogic kriya, right? Elena says, I am practicing Kriya Yoga meditation. It's all about hearing the inner sound, vibration, and breath, moving the energy. Definitely. Whole System says, making meditation a practice that is integrated with all that we do, whether it's something pleasant or unpleasant. That is my intention. Yes, witnessing all of it. It's not about being enlightened and pretending you're spiritual all the time. It's not about being stuck in anger and shame and pain. It's about witnessing that that is the monkey. And the monkey goes through that cycle, and the witness is going, oh yeah, I've been dead a million times before, and this is the same old bullshit that my body and mind does. I get this, and can I not be so reactive about it and let it fart? Just let that all fart through without being like, stop being this way, or you need to be more this way. Just coming from the perspective of, yeah, I get it. You do this thing. Mind, depressed one day, happy the next day, depressed again the next day, thinking that this will fulfill me, thinking that that will fulfill me, grabbing this, pushing that away. It's all just bullshit. It's all just this bullshit attachment, you know? And when we die, we're going to be like, what if that was necessary and what if that wasn't necessary? You know, what if that was wasting my time and what if it wasn't? And I know that what will give me the most fulfillment is if I say, you know what, at least I tried. At least I tried to serve other people. At least I tried to consider people. At least I tried to keep my heart open. And goodbye. You know? And that's maybe what matters. You know, they call it sukha and dukkha. And there's actually not an and. Sukha, dukkha. Maddie the Fatty says, do you have any tips on how to serve others while still honoring yourself and staying grounded? I know boundaries are huge and being able to recenter, but what if you can't escape for some alone time? Well, go hide in your closet for an hour. Take a hot bath for an hour. You can. You can do something little. Take a walk around the block with headphones in, right? Just show the world that not right now. I'm not doing this. And so my cycle looks like on the weekends I teach and interact with a lot of people, and then the week I kind of have time to go within and go into nature, and I feel privileged and blessed for that. But find your own balance, you know. Take your time to do your service to others and continue to work on yourself. Know that you're getting enough sleep. So in order to serve others, right, get enough sleep, eat well, do the basic things, drink tea, and then little things are sometimes so much stronger than bigger things. You know, so I'm trying to work with underprivileged people right now. That's not for everyone, and it doesn't need to be. If you're out there and you're a single mom with a job that can barely afford food, like, you may not have the energy to go help underprivileged communities. You are part of the underprivileged community, and that's why my white cis male privilege can offer that. And we all have a different, due to the configurations of how we're born, what we're born into, what our training is, what we are interested in, what we read about, what we learn about, we can offer a part of ourselves that is unique and important. And even if your community service looks like helping your mother die of a disease with her hand in your hand, that's the equivalent of feeding millions of homeless people. Raising one child, you know, raising one child with a greater level of awareness, right? That's huge work. And so we don't necessarily always need to hyperextend ourselves. You know, we all have a way here. We all have a role. And I think so much it's about the mind going, I'm not doing enough, I'm not doing enough, I'm not doing enough, I'm not doing enough, I'm not doing enough. And that's when I come up with a Jim Morrison quote, I better have my kicks before the whole shit house goes up in flames. And of course, that's like your kicks and that's like aggrandizement. But what it really means is like, do whatever you can, and we might all die anyway. But it's better that you try than wish you did. You know, so at the end of my life, I don't want to wish I did. I want to have done it. You know, I don't want to live with regret, like, oh, I suppressed myself and I worked at the gas station the whole time and I'd always wished I just taught foraging. Make sure that that's not your life, you know, and as long as that's not your life, then honor yourself, stay grounded, and whatever extra you have, give it to others, you know, and it's not hard. Give your furniture to someone, or your extra clothes, you know, have a community potluck where you do a clothing swap. Anything. It doesn't have to be some huge big thing. Whole system says, yeah, it's no good holding on to farts. You pay for that later. Yes. You hear this, lady? Don't hold your farts in. Otherwise, you become full of shit. Actually, they're two different things, but close. I tried. Rivka says, I'm okay with being a monkey. Humans aren't better than other life forms. All of God's creation is all of God's creation. Absolutely. But the metaphor is sort of the monkey mind. Hold on. 6 minutes. 6% battery. The idea is monkey mind, right? Monkeys swing from trees to trees. That's all it means. It doesn't mean that a monkey is a lower life form. It means that the mind is like a monkey swinging from tree to tree. And I'm not mind. I'm actually witness of mind, misidentifying myself as mind. And so we just like the monkey mind is a metaphor, or like a hamster on a wheel, right? That's no shame against being a hamster. It's not hamster judgment. It's just a matter of getting off that wheel, getting off the swinging, and into realizing that we're not only the mind. We're not only the mind. Emma Wood says, do I have a morning routine? Yes, I wake up. Trying to get into the sense of stretching a little in bed. I try to recall my dreams. I get up. I brush my teeth. I poop. I make some tea or coffee, and I sit, and I either listen to podcasts and stretch and meditate, or put on some music sometimes, depending on where I'm at. Then I like to go for a walk somewhere in nature, or just take at least 100 steps. And most of my yoga asana is much more freeing, sort of like just trying to get into the stuck places, these kind of things, more than like downward dogs and stuff. And then make breakfast. I usually take about 2 hours to eat breakfast from waking up. So that's a little bit simple. Rivka says, one has to accept foolishness before transcending it. I agree. But what I mean to say is that foolishness is going to come and go. Happiness and sadness are going to come and go. Even if that's occurring, there's still an observer who's not experiencing that. And so if we attach that that's me, it becomes very hard, right? We can suffer. We can get mad at ourselves. We can shame ourselves. But if we recognize that at least 1% of me is also just not experiencing that, if I have a thought, if I can witness another person, it means I'm a witness. If I can witness a thought, it means I'm the witness. And so that's, all metaphors aside, the question is, how can I witness my ebb and flow, right? And not judge it as good or bad, but try to just witness. And maybe that is accepting foolishness. Let's see. Poot. Better out than in. Totally true. Emma Wood says, give me an easy example of your breakfast. So this morning I had eggs cooked in butter and put that on arugula. And the arugula had some dressing on it. And what else was it? Tomatoes. There it was. Tomatoes. How to be the rice bag monk in Babylon. I love that. So that's an example of breakfast. I'm trying to just think what other, I try to make it a green thing and some sort of protein and some sort of fat. I think breakfast is pretty much the most important meal of the day, so I try to eat a heavier breakfast than I do lunch and dinner. So this way my stomach is kind of cleared out by the time I go to sleep. Rivka says, observer always experiencing. That's how we grow. Definitely. Quiet observer. Fart bag monk is the quiet observer. How to be the rice bag monk in Babylon is that's the question, right? So this is sort of okay, in the yogic, this happened in India. This was 1,000-year period. In the yogic tradition, let me check my battery. 4%. In the yogic tradition, what happened was there was the yogic philosophy, right? Patanjali, a fart bag monk. That's what I am. I'm just a big bag of farts. Um, so the yogic tradition was saying, renounce, get out of here. The world is full of attachments. Disconnect yourself from the world and go within and meditating. Um, and so then this movement to disconnecting and removing yourself from the samsara. And this is where the Maya, the definition of Maya at the time was that the world is an illusion. And then there was the Tantric Reformation. And the Tantric Reformation said, wait a minute, so you're saying that there is only one consciousness here? Yes. You're saying that you need to escape something to attain one consciousness? Yes. Isn't the something you're escaping a part and parcel of that one consciousness? Oh shit. So this brought us back into the world, and then you have something like the Bhagavad Gita, which talks about, well, how to do your dharma, how to do your service, your karma yoga, and Krishna takes that, right? Krishna takes that, the fruits of your merit, you are then not the recipient. If you're serving, if you're doing your dharma, you're not taking on the negative karmas of being in the world. So it's like sort of reintegrating the householder back into spiritual practice. So what we have is this idea that spirituality and spiritual practice looks like escapism. And the Tantric Reformation is saying, well, if you're talking about non-duality, then the world is also God. Eating eggs is somehow also part of your spiritual practice if you can make it a more conscious, aware practice. And eating rice and not even thinking about who grew it or who picked it is not as spiritually conscious as seeing the chicken or slaughtering the chicken, right? Being mindless about our behavior, no matter what we're doing, is sort of the antithesis of mindfulness. And so, there's this, okay, there's either two worlds or there's one world. So a lot of GMO rice. I mean, sadhus in India are eating tons and tons of pesticide-ridden GMO rice. That's himsa. That's not ahimsa, even though it's rice. And that's a really difficult thing that they don't have that awareness. The tradition was pure, and now it's just being infiltrated by the crap that we create in this modern world. So there's a lot more to, I believe we need a tantric reformation of this culture where it's like, okay, we are having sex, drugs, rock and roll, drinking alcohol, eating meat. We're doing all of it, but we have no sense that it's supposed to be sacred. So we're doing it unconsciously and then going to church. You know what I mean? Instead of how do we turn that whole thing into an awareness practice? And that's what the Tantric Reformation in India was doing now. It has to be different now because that was like for Brahmins who were super strict, who were neurotic about the idea of touching a knife that was cut with meat. And so their guru would pull a Jedi mind trick on them and say, touch the knife that was full of meat, because it kind of cleanses the neuroticism and creates a balance. Now, that path is not for everyone, and only a competent guru could know how to fuck with your mind and not ruin your life. Most of it these days is probably just psycho nonsense. But read Sir John Woodruff, right? He's got books on Tantra. And there's a lot more to say, and my is at 1%. So see y'all later. Thank you so much. We'll continue soon.